Disclaimer: this video is a work of fiction created purely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised, as the story contains suspenseful and eerie themes that may not be suitable for all audiences. Please watch in a safe environment and remember, it's just a story. Or is it? It started with a phone call that shouldn't have happened. No number, no ID, just a black screen with the word unknown glowing eerily in the dim light of the room. It was exactly 3:12 a.m. The kind of hour when the world feels like it's holding its breath, when shadows seem to move even if nothing else does, and silence rings louder than sound. Eric sat up in bed, his heart already pounding before he even answered. Something in his bones told him this wasn't just a wrong number. The air in his apartment was unusually cold that night, far colder than the old building's shaky heating should have allowed. The moment he picked up, there was nothing. No voice. No breathing. Just static. Not the kind you hear on the radio. This one was deeper, heavier. It sounded like it was crawling through the wires, dragging something with it. "Hello," Eric whispered, unsure why he kept his voice low, as if speaking louder might draw something closer. Then a voice finally came through. It was faint, brittle. A whisper covered in dirt. And it said only 5 chilling words. "Why did you leave me?" Eric froze. The voice didn't sound human. Not completely. There was something in it, pain, yes, but also distance. Like the person was speaking from the bottom of a well. Or a grave. He hung up. But the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It felt heavier, like the apartment was now watching him, waiting. The lights flickered once, then went out completely, throwing the room into a pitch-black void. Outside, even the city seemed to hush. No cars. No wind. Just that deep, pressing silence. Eric wasn't a believer. Not in ghosts, not in anything beyond what you could touch or explain. But that call cracked something in him. He hadn't heard that voice in years. And yet, it was unmistakable. He hadn't spoken about Amanda since her funeral. They were close once, inseparable. Childhood best friends who grew up on the same street, shared secrets, laughed under bedsheets with flashlights, made promises in the dark. Then, she was gone. A car accident, sudden and brutal. He never got to say goodbye. Never visited her grave, never sent flowers. He just moved on. Or tried to. And now this. He spent the rest of the night staring at his phone, waiting for it to ring again. It never did. But the damage was done. That whisper stuck to his mind like smoke. "Why did you leave me?" The next morning, Eric tried to laugh it off. Bad dream. Maybe even sleep paralysis. He told himself all the usual things people tell themselves when something doesn't make sense. But when he checked his phone history, there it was. A call from unknown, exactly 3:12 a.m. Duration, 17 seconds. Still, he had to work. Life doesn't pause for nightmares. But everything felt wrong. The world around him had lost its edges. Colors felt dull, people's voices distant, like he was underwater. And everywhere he went, he heard little sounds. Soft static from broken radios, whispering phones ringing once and going silent. He started seeing signs, too. Amanda's name scribbled on walls, her favorite song playing faintly in random places, even though it wasn't popular anymore. He tried telling his best friend, Marcus, but the conversation didn't go well. Marcus laughed, said Eric was just tired. Maybe guilty. Maybe he never really got over what happened to Amanda. Maybe the mind plays tricks when it's trying to deal with buried guilt. Eric didn't argue. But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. This wasn't guilt. This was contact. That night, he couldn't sleep. The air felt wrong again. Heavy. Still. as if time had paused. The temperature dropped suddenly, and as he pulled the blanket up to his chin, he saw his breath rise into the air. Then his phone lit up. Another call. Same name, unknown. Same time, 3:12 a.m. With shaking hands, he answered. And the same voice whispered again. You never came to say goodbye. Eric whispered her name. Amanda, but there was only static. Then a strange sound. It wasn't just noise this time. It was something, moving. Dirt shifting. Like nails scratching wood. Like someone trying to claw their way through something solid. Suddenly, the call ended. And this time, his phone wouldn't turn off. The screen froze, stuck on the call log. The timer kept counting, even though the call had ended. The seconds rolled on endlessly, as if the connection hadn't really been broken. The next day, Eric made the decision to visit her grave. The cemetery was quiet, the way all graveyards are, but this one felt even more isolated. Like the world had forgotten it. Amanda's headstone was exactly where he remembered it from the funeral, though he hadn't been back since. It was worn now, the letters dulled, the stone cracked a little on one edge. He knelt down, not sure what he was supposed to say. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have come sooner. The wind picked up. A dry, cold gust that carried the scent of soil and something else, something old. And then his phone rang again. He stared at the screen. No number. No ID. Just one word glowing in red, below. His hands trembled as he declined the call. But when he looked back at the gravestone, something was different. The soil, it looked freshly turned. Just a little, just enough to notice. And right there, by the base of the stone, was his name. Scratched faintly into the stone beside hers. Eric stumbled back, heart racing, the ground beneath him suddenly feeling less solid. His phone buzzed again. New voicemail. He hesitated, then pressed play. The voice that followed was clearer now. Still distant, but unmistakable. You came too late. Now you'll never leave. And then, digging sounds. Closer this time. Like they were coming from right beneath his feet. Eric turned, ready to run, but froze as something cold brushed against his ankle. He looked down. There was a hand. Pale. Dirty. Reaching out from the soil. But when he blinked, it was gone. Or was it? He backed away slowly, but every step felt harder. Like the air had thickened. Like the world itself was trying to pull him down. And behind him, the phone started ringing again. Ringing. Ringing. Endlessly. And this time, he didn't dare answer. Because deep down, he already knew what the voice would say next. And he wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. But the grave. The grave was waiting. Eric didn't go home that night. He couldn't. Something about being alone in his apartment, those four quiet walls, the flickering lights, the ever-watching dark, felt like walking into a trap. Instead, he drove. Aimlessly at first, just to get away, just to keep moving. The ringing in his ears wouldn't stop, and even though his phone was powered off, he swore he could hear it vibrating from inside the glove box. Over and over. Like a heartbeat that didn't belong to him. He ended up parking outside Marcus's place. The lights were off, but Eric banged on the door anyway, desperate not to be alone. Marcus opened the door with half-lidded eyes and a groggy voice, but when he saw Eric, his pale face, his trembling hands, he didn't ask questions. Just let him in. Eric didn't say much at first. Just sat on the couch, staring into the space between the coffee table and the shadows in the corner of the room. The only thing he managed to get out was that something was wrong. Something he couldn't explain. Marcus tried to be supportive, but there was a limit to how much anyone could believe. Even when Eric showed him the call log, even when he played the voicemail, Marcus insisted there had to be some logical explanation. A prank, maybe. A sick joke. Technology glitching. But Eric knew better. He saw the soil. He saw his name carved into the stone. Around 3 a.m., Eric finally dozed off on the couch, exhausted from hours of adrenaline and fear. Marcus went back to bed, shaking his head but leaving a lamp on in the hallway just in case. The night seemed to quiet, and for a moment, everything felt still. Until the static came back. Eric awoke to it. Not from his phone this time, but from the television. A grey snowstorm buzzing and shifting across the screen, though the remote was nowhere near. The clock on the wall blinked 3:12 a.m., and for some reason, Eric felt cold again. Bone-deep cold, like he'd been buried under ice. Then came the whisper. Not from the TV, not from a device, but from the room itself. "He doesn't believe you. But he will." Eric shot to his feet, heart slamming in his chest. The room was empty. The hallway light flickered, casting brief shadows that seemed to move on their own. He went to Marcus's door and knocked, but before he could say anything, the TV turned off on its own. A second later, the voicemail notification appeared on his phone again even though it was still powered down. Just glowing on the black screen. One new message. He didn't play it this time. He didn't need to. The house already felt like it had heard it. The next morning, Marcus looked tired. He admitted to hearing something in the night, footsteps, maybe. He thought it was Eric moving around. But Eric hadn't moved. Not once after standing up. He'd just stared at the phone, gripped in his hands like a grenade with the pin already pulled. Something was following him. Or worse, something was pulling him. Not just haunting. Drawing him somewhere. Burying the line between dreams and waking life. He couldn't tell when the nightmare started anymore, because it hadn't ended. He went to his childhood home next. His parents had long moved out, but the house still stood on that quiet suburban street, empty, windows boarded, waiting for demolition. Amanda used to live next door. That was where they first met. Where they built forts from old sheets and pretended to be ghost hunters in the backyard. He parked across the street and stared at the houses. They looked normal. Calm. But the air felt heavy again, like a storm was pressing down. He crossed the road and stepped into the overgrown grass of Amanda's old yard. The house was long abandoned, but the front door was ajar, like it had been waiting for someone to come home. Inside, it was colder than he expected. Dust blanketed everything, and the floorboards groaned under his weight. The living room still had the same old fireplace, the same cracked tiles they used to sit on as kids. But the photos were gone. Every frame on the wall was empty. Just outlines of where the images used to be, with thin scratches where the glass had been broken. He wandered toward the stairs, half dreaming, half scared. Something about this place felt stuck in time. Like the last moment Amanda was alive had been trapped here. Like it never moved on. Then, he heard her laugh. It was soft. Familiar. The kind of laugh she'd make when teasing him, back when things were still innocent. He turned around fast, but the room was empty. Except, one of the empty frames on the wall now had a photo in it. It was of him. Standing in the very same hallway. But in the photo, he wasn't alone. Amanda stood behind him. Smiling. And her eyes, they were closed. Like she was sleeping. Or maybe, just pretending. He stepped closer to the photo, but the glass cracked right down the middle before he could touch it. Then, the door upstairs creaked open slowly. And something began to walk down. Step by heavy step. Each footfall echoing like it weighed more than the house itself. Eric wanted to move. To run. But his feet wouldn't budge. The air had thickened again, pressing in like soil from all sides. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. He took it out, hands trembling. Another voicemail. But this time, the screen didn't show unknown. It showed Amanda. And it said, "I'm almost there." Eric's fingers hovered over the screen, Over the message glowing in faint, sickly light. Amanda, I'm almost there. He didn't open it. He couldn't. Just staring at her name made his stomach twist. Amanda had been gone for years, buried, mourned, forgotten by everyone except him. And yet, here she was. Not just a memory now, not a dream or a ghost story, but something worse. Something real, reaching out through signals and silence and shadows. The footsteps on the stairs stopped. Not at the top. Not at the bottom. Right in the middle, where the hallway turned, just out of view. Eric stood frozen, breath caught in his throat, eyes locked on that corner like it might blink back at him. The silence after the last step was louder than the footsteps themselves. It felt deliberate. Like whatever was up there knew exactly how long to wait before taking another. Then a soft tap. One slow knock against the wall, then another. Like fingernails. Or bone. He bolted. Out the door, through the yard, nearly tripping over roots that hadn't been there before. The air was thick with static, as if the entire house was wrapped in some unseen frequency. His phone buzzed again. This time, not a call. A photo. He didn't remember taking it. But it showed the inside of Amanda's bedroom. The old wallpaper. The bed. The broken mirror. And in the mirror, him. Standing behind himself. Eric threw the phone into the passenger seat and drove without looking back. Every light seemed too dim, every road too long. He didn't know where he was going anymore. He just needed to be around people. Somewhere bright. Loud. Alive. He ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Cheap coffee, blinking neon sign, and a tired-looking waitress who didn't ask why he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Or maybe she was just used to it out here. Marcus met him an hour later. He looked worried now, not skeptical. Eric wasn't making jokes anymore, wasn't saying things that could be explained away. He just looked haunted. Worn down. Like something had crawled inside him and rearranged the way he saw the world. Eric told him everything about the photo, the footsteps, the message. He left out nothing this time. And when Marcus saw the message from Amanda with his own eyes, the smile dropped from his face completely. Maybe someone's messing with you, he said, but even he didn't believe it anymore. That's when Eric made a mistake. He gave Marcus the phone. Just to hold. Just to see if he'd get the same message. And within seconds, the screen flickered to life in Marcus's hand. A new voicemail. But now, it said, "Marcus, you're next." He dropped it like it burned. "What the hell is this?" he asked, voice shaking. Eric didn't answer. Because the lights in the diner started to flicker, just like in his apartment. And outside the window, the world looked wrong. Dimmer. Like the streetlights were being swallowed, one by one. The noise of the diner, the clinking of plates, the hum of conversations, began to fade. Everyone else froze. Literally. The couple in the booth near the door. The waitress mid-step. The cook behind the counter. They didn't move. Didn't blink. Time had stopped for everyone but them. And then the phone rang again. Eric didn't pick up. He already knew the voice that would come through. He glanced around, heart racing, feeling like a rat in a cage slowly filling with water. The TV in the corner of the diner crackled to life. No broadcast. No news. Just a single frame. Amanda's gravestone. And next to it, another one. Blank. Still being carved. As if the grave was waiting for a name. They left the diner without speaking. Outside, time resumed. Cars passed. Lights brightened. People moved. But nothing felt normal. The world had shifted. Something had seen them. Not just Amanda now, something else. Something using her voice, her image, her pain. Feeding on it. Back at Marcus's place, they started researching. Anything they could find about calls from the dead, haunted electronics, cursed voicemails. Most of it was nonsense, half-baked forums and campfire tales. But one post stood out. It was from 10 years ago. A user described getting a call at exactly 3:12 a.m. from a deceased relative. The details matched perfectly: unknown number, static, whispers. The post ended abruptly. No follow-up. Just a final edit: if you get the call, don't answer twice. The third is the last. Eric's stomach dropped. He'd answered twice already. The phone rang again. No ringtone this time. Just a low, humming static. Like a warning. Or a countdown. He didn't answer. But the message was already written. This time, it didn't come from Amanda. It came from his number. Sent to Marcus. And it read, "Let me in." They stared at each other in terrified silence, both knowing the same thing: this wasn't just about Eric anymore. Whatever had crawled through that call, it was looking for more than a voice on the other end. It was looking for a door. Eric didn't sleep that night. Neither did Marcus. They sat in silence in the living room, lit only by the cold, jittery light of the television, which refused to stay off. Every time they hit the power button, it flickered off for a second, then turned itself back on, humming with static that seemed to whisper beneath the surface. Neither of them dared to speak too loud, like their voices might wake something just beyond the edge of the room. The air felt wrong. Thicker now, harder to breathe. The silence wasn't empty, it was crowded. As if the walls were listening. Watching. Eric stared at his phone, afraid to touch it, afraid to look away. The last message was still there: "Let me in." Sent from his own number. And now it wasn't just targeting him. Whatever this thing was, it had expanded its reach. And Marcus, just by proximity, was already caught in its grasp. At 3:12 a.m. again it rang. But this time, it wasn't just Eric's phone. Marcus's phone buzzed too. Then the TV screen flickered, shifting from static to something worse. A live feed. Of them. Inside the room. But they weren't alone. Behind them, in the grainy black and white image, a tall, pale shape stood just at the edge of the hallway. It had no face. No features. Just a shadow stretched over skin. Watching. Breathing. Eric spun around. Nothing. Just the hallway, dim and still. But when he turned back to the screen, the figure had moved. Closer. Now standing right behind the couch. Marcus stood up in a panic and yanked the TV cord from the wall. Darkness swallowed the screen, but the air didn't change. The presence lingered. As if pulling the plug had only made it angry. They couldn't stay. Not here. Not anywhere familiar. They jumped into Marcus's car and drove. No destination. No plan. Just fleeing the invisible trap tightening around them. But even the road seemed to twist now. Street signs looked wrong, the names warped into phrases they didn't remember. Lights flickered out behind them as if the world was being erased in their wake. Marcus pulled over in a supermarket parking lot and killed the engine. "We need help," he muttered, hands gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "A priest, a psychic, I don't care. Someone." Eric didn't answer. He was staring through the windshield, unblinking. In the distance, across the dark asphalt, stood a figure. Amanda. Still in the same clothes she was buried in. Still smiling. But her mouth was too wide now. And her eyes, they were open this time. Black, empty pits staring straight into him. She didn't move. Just stood there, in the dead center of the lot, like a statue. Until the store lights behind her blinked out. One by one. Closer. And closer. Eric turned the key in the ignition, but the car wouldn't start. Dead. The lights inside the vehicle flickered, then shut off. Then the phone buzzed again. Both of them. This time, they didn't need to read the messages. Because Amanda had already reached the car. They saw her hand press against the windshield. Not a slam. Not a scratch. Just a gentle touch. Like she was testing the glass. Her skin looked like porcelain, cracked. Cold. And the moment her hand touched the glass, Eric's phone rang again. No number. No caller ID. Just one word on the screen. Home. Eric's hands shook as he declined the call. But the screen turned on anyway. A live video. From inside his apartment. The couch. The hallway. The lamp. Except now. Amanda was in that video too. Sitting on his couch. Waiting. And behind her, the blank grave marker from the photo. No longer blank. It now read, Eric Harlan, answered the call. Eric threw the phone onto the floorboard. But even without looking, he could feel it vibrating. Buzzing. Calling. As if something inside it was alive now. Marcus whispered, "We're not safe anywhere." Eric turned to him slowly. "We were never meant to be safe." He didn't know where the words came from. They felt foreign, like someone else was using his mouth. In the side mirror, Amanda was gone. But her voice echoed inside the car. No sound system. No speaker. Just the air. Only one of you can leave. Then silence. Not just around them, but inside them. Like something had taken their breath. Their thoughts. The horror wasn't just chasing them anymore. It was inside the lines of their reality. And it wasn't finished. Not yet. The wind outside had died. No rustle, no hum, just dead air pressing in on the car like a coffin with wheels. Marcus gripped the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles ghost white. Eric sat beside him, frozen. Amanda was gone, but not gone. She never left. She only shifted. Like smoke, like something leaking through cracks in their minds. The silence was unbearable. But it wasn't just silence, it was waiting. Like whatever had started this was giving them a moment. To think. To choose. Then, Eric's phone lit up again. Only this time, it wasn't a call or a message. It was a calendar notification. Burial scheduled, 4 a.m. Location, Harlan plot, 2 graves reserved. Eric's breath caught. 2 graves, he whispered. Marcus turned to him, confusion flickering behind the fear. Yours and Amanda's. Eric shook his head slowly. Amanda was cremated. The realization slammed into them both. It wasn't Amanda's grave beside his. It was Marcus's. Marcus backed away like something had struck him. No. No, this isn't real. But the phone spoke again. Not through a ringtone. Not even a speaker. The device itself seemed to vibrate a voice into the air. Only one can stay. The other must replace what was taken. That's when everything changed. The rearview mirror no longer reflected their faces. It showed them still sitting in the car, but from behind, as if someone was inside the back seat with them. Eric turned slowly. Nothing. But the mirror, it continued playing, like a video. In the reflection, Eric saw himself reach into his jacket. Pull something out. A phone. No. A knife. His own face, expressionless. Cold. Like a puppet without strings. Marcus was shaking. Turn it off, turn it off. Eric slammed his fist into the mirror. It shattered, but the image didn't stop. Now, shards of glass on the dash each showed the same thing, 100 tiny reflections of Eric killing Marcus. He dropped the glass. That's not going to happen, he said. I would never, but Marcus didn't look convinced anymore. I don't know what's real anymore, man. I saw your name on a gravestone. I got a message saying I'm next. Now this. He gestured to the broken glass. What if we are already dead? What if one of us has to go? That's when the real twist came. Eric's phone buzzed one final time. A file had downloaded itself. A recording. They both stared at it. Play me, Harlan family recording, 1995. Eric hesitated, but his thumb moved on its own. The audio began. Children laughing. His voice young, maybe 7 years old. A girl's voice too. Amanda's. But then came something else. A voice in the background. Whispering, layered, impossible to isolate. Not a parent. Not a sibling. A presence. One must stay, for the door to close. Then came a scream. A child's. Amanda's. The tape ended. Eric sat stunned. I don't remember that. But somewhere, deep inside, a memory flickered. A game they used to play. In his grandparents' cellar. With candles. With a mirror. They used to pretend they were opening a door to the other side. But maybe, it hadn't been pretend. What if they really opened something? And what if Amanda hadn't just died in that accident years later? What if she'd been taken as payment? Eric felt sick. It started with us. Back then. Marcus stared at him. Then why is it happening now? Eric looked down at the broken phone screen. Because it never finished. I left the door open. And now it wants the other one. Suddenly, the sky outside brightened. But not from the sun. From a single, blinding light directly above the car. Like a spotlight from something not human. And in that light, Amanda appeared again. But not as herself. Her body twisted, elongated, eyes blacker than death. No longer a person. Something wearing her. And in her hand she held a key. The door. It had always been real. And now, she was opening it again. Eric grabbed Marcus's arm. We have to go now. But Marcus didn't move. His eyes were locked on the figure outside, face pale, lips trembling. What if it's right, he said softly. What if one of us has to die? Eric shook him. No. That's what it wants. It wants fear. Doubt. It feeds on it. But Marcus pulled away. Then let it feed. Before Eric could stop him, Marcus opened the door. Stepped out into the light. And Amanda reached for him. Cut to black. One final message appears on screen. Only one returned. What would you do in this situation? Would you have answered the first call? And do you think Eric truly survived? Let me know in the comments, if you're brave enough to answer. Marcus vanished into the light. Not like someone stepping out of a room, but like a shadow devoured by flame, silent, fast, final. Eric's scream died in his throat as the air rushed back into the world like an implosion. The spotlight was gone. So was Amanda. The night returned, darker than before. The passenger door hung open, but there was no sign Marcus had ever been there. Eric stumbled out of the car, calling his name again and again, but only silence answered. Not even an echo. Just the soft hiss of wind across the empty pavement and the faint hum of a phone screen still glowing from the seat. His. Still open. Still waiting. Still calling. He picked it up and saw a final notification. One accepted. One rejected. Balance pending. The screen flickered, then changed. It wasn't the interface of his phone anymore. It looked like a live surveillance feed. Not of his apartment. Not of the diner. But of a room he didn't recognize at first. Small. Windowless. Bare stone walls and a single chair under a dim, swinging light bulb. In the chair, Marcus. Unmoving. But breathing. Barely. Eric's heart slammed against his ribs. He whispered Marcus's name as if it could carry through the screen and into that room. But then the feed split into two smaller screens. One still showed Marcus. The other, Eric himself. But not now. It was younger Eric. 7, maybe 8 years old, standing in that cellar with Amanda. holding her hand, staring into a mirror surrounded by candlelight. Eric's breath hitched. No, that was just a game. We didn't open anything. We were just, but the video said otherwise. In the mirror, behind the children, a shape moved. Not Amanda. Not him. Something vast. Wrong. It had been watching all along. Only one leaves, it whispered through the screen, a voice like crackling glass and burning wires. You brought us. You forgot. You owe. Eric dropped the phone. No. I didn't know what we were doing. The screen didn't shatter. It bled. A thick, black liquid began pouring from its edges, pooling at his feet. The ground vibrated beneath him as if the earth itself had become hollow. The darkness below wasn't just shadow anymore, it was depth, endless and alive. Eric ran. No destination. Just movement. But every turn brought him back to the same place. The parking lot. The car. The phone. And now, a door. A real one. Freestanding in the middle of the asphalt. Wooden. Cracked. Familiar. The door from the cellar. And from behind it, Amanda's voice. But now it was layered, distorted. Not just hers. 100 voices. All calling his name. Screaming. Begging. Some were his own. Eric fell to his knees. What do you want from me? The doorknob turned. Slowly. And the door creaked open. There, in the frame, stood Amanda, not broken, not monstrous. Just Amanda. Pale. Calm. Eyes shimmering with something that wasn't human, but wasn't cruel either. She looked tired. You left it open, she said softly. Eric's voice cracked. What? In the cellar. You and I. That night. We never closed it. You ran. I stayed. Something took me, Eric. But not before I made a deal. Eric shook his head. What deal? Amanda looked at him with a sorrow that cut deeper than any scream ever could. You would forget. I would remain. Until the door demanded another. And then she stepped aside. Behind her, in the room beyond the door, Marcus. Bound to a chair. Struggling now. Mouth gagged. Eyes wild with terror. Eric stumbled back. No, I'm not doing this. You have to choose, Amanda said. That's what this always was. One stays. One returns. I stayed. You forgot. Now it's time to pay. Eric turned to run, but the lot was gone. Everything was gone. There was only the door. The choice. And time was running out. He turned back, breathing hard, sweat soaking his clothes. You want balance, he shouted into the void. Then take me. The ground shook. The black fluid surged around his feet like it had been waiting for those words. Amanda nodded. Eric stepped toward the door. Toward Marcus. But the closer he got, the farther Marcus seemed. The hallway stretched. Bent. The floor melted beneath him. His body slowed, pulled by unseen hands. Then he stopped. Right before crossing the threshold. Amanda held up her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. But the choice was already made. And with that, she shut the door. Eric screamed and slammed into the wood, but it didn't move. It was like trying to punch through a mountain. The voices rose, deafening, until he could no longer hear his own thoughts. And then, silence. He opened his eyes. He was sitting in his apartment. Lights on. Phone in hand. No missed calls. No messages. Just the quiet hum of the fridge and the distant sound of traffic outside. Had it all been a nightmare? He looked around, breathing hard. Everything looked normal. Until he saw the mirror. His reflection wasn't moving. It stared back, blinking out of sync. Then smiling. Too wide. Too knowing. Then the phone buzzed. A text. From Marcus. Just 2 words. Asterisk you stayed. Asterisk what would you do in this situation? Do you think Eric ever left? Or did the door never really close? Let me know in the comments. If you dare.